and stuff. I'd like to see it, but you know, they got to play at Missouri. I think Missouri's going to take them. That's just me. I think they'll smoke Texas. I think they'll beat Texas Tech. But I just have a feeling that Missouri game is going to be really tough. And you know what? I wouldn't put it past Baylor to beat them too. I mean, they could end up being 9-2 by the time they get to us. It'd be great if they were 11-0. That'd be a fun game. Another huge game: Clemson at Virginia Tech. Unfortunately, last week, you know, we'll talk about Florida State just for a minute, losing that game to Clemson. They brought in the freshman. He played the whole game. He actually played a pretty decent game. They still scored 30 points. They lost 35-30. People say that Florida State losing to Clemson showed they had no offense. That's not true. They scored 30 points. They have an offense. OU shut them down. That's just the deal. I feel for Clemson. I feel for Florida State losing that game. I think they're going to bounce back. They're going to end up with like a 9-3 season. They really need Virginia Tech to win this game to help them try to get back to the championship game. Right now, Clemson obviously holds it on them because they have a 2-game lead because they beat them. Clemson, Virginia Tech. It's at Virginia Tech. I'm rooting for Clemson. I don't often root for Virginia Tech. There's something about them. I never really liked them. But you know what? They always are a solid program. They played for the championship one year. They're always in and around it. They're a good, solid program. But I'd like to see Clemson win again. I like to see a team with mojo, keep the mojo going. I don't know why. I just like that kind of building on the next game. You got to win. You build it, and that'll be the third straight top 25 team they're playing, even though the rankings don't matter as much right now. But it was a good win over Auburn. It was a good win over Florida State. Both of those were at home. Now they got to go on the road to Virginia Tech and really prove who they are. I think Virginia Tech unfortunately takes them. I'd like to take Clemson. I'm going to be rooting for Clemson. I'll be happy if Clemson wins, but I see Virginia Tech taking that game. It's just a tough thing when you've been at home like that, and then suddenly you got to go back out on the road. You're playing a very solid team, and so I just think it's going to be too much for Clemson to win this game. Back to the so-called conference realignment thing again. Obviously, we've settled in to have the Big 12. I don't want to touch on it too much, but it looks like Missouri is trying to leave. I said it on the board. I think they're already gone. It's kind of like the A&M situation. And to me, they're a perfect fit for the Southeastern Conference. I wish them well. I hope they get there as soon as possible, so then we can try to figure out what teams we really want back into the Big 12. Because obviously, I think the Big 12 is going to stay as a conference. Texas and OU, you know, are the reason it's going to stay. We just need to figure out. I want it back to 12 teams. I want a championship game. I'm not really thrilled about going to making a 16-team conference and having pods. And that's just too many teams in one conference. I'm not really. It's not. 12 was the limit, and even when we went from 8 to 12, you know, I was concerned, but we were sucking at the time, you know, so we didn't really have much of a say. It was 1996. We'd hired Blake, and that was after Smell of Bourbon, and so we didn't really have much of a say. So I thought 12 would be almost too much, but I really feel 16 is. It's just too many teams. I really appreciate conference championships. I think conference championships mean something, unlike the Longhorns, because they're behind Bob Stoops and OU, try to tell us that it doesn't. There's something about winning a conference and then going from that conference and representing that conference in a bowl game. I appreciate that when that happens. And I think it's something that with a 16-team conference, it will be, you know, yes, maybe it will lead to a playoff. We don't know that, though. You know, the thing is, we don't know. And since without knowing, then I'm not willing to do it. I don't want to do it. And like I said, it looks like that the presidents have come together and they're going to keep the Big 12, you know, as the Big 12. So I don't know who's going to the Ball State game this week. I heard that there might be some rain, but I don't care if there's rain, you know, sleet, snow. That score better be 59-0, 56-0. In fact, I think the game is pay-per-view this week. So unless you're willing to shell out the, you know, the $30, $40 or whatever it is, you know, a lot of us aren't going to see it till Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, or you know, Monday morning at 3 o'clock, or whatever it does, whenever it gets repeated, because it will get repeated. Just remember that the game will be repeated. But they'll stay injury-free in the game. Glad to see Travis Lewis is back, and he's looking good. I know he was pretty pissed off about the way they played against Missouri, and they did have to be, because they They could not play press man coverage like they wanted to. And so because of that, and I think they're going to need press man coverage later in the year. So that's why a lot of disappointment set in that game, because when they play other teams, whoever we play in the ball game, it could be Stanford. We're playing Stanford. We may have to play press man-to-man coverage in the championship game. So it's a type of defense that we need to be able to play, and we showed that we could not play it. Yeah, we were terrible at playing it, and that was tough, especially after all the shark talk and how the backs were the sharks, the defensive backs, and how they were ready to bite and take interceptions and stuff, and they didn't show it. It was obvious, and so but they manned up, readjusted the defense, went back to a simpler defense. Well, the press man coverage was simple, but they went back to a defense they could handle, and then they shut Missouri down until the end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter. So I was happy with the way they responded to some adversity. I'm not so sure yet how much adversity teams like Alabama has had. LSU to a degree, but people forget that Mississippi State game. LSU's offense didn't do much. I mean, yeah, they won 19-6, but it was like 6-6 at half or something, or at 13-6, whatever it was. It was close, and it wasn't because of the offense of LSU. It was Mississippi State's offense just wasn't very good, and kind of gave it to LSU at certain points. So I think OU's offense is much, much better than LSU's, obviously than Bama's. But you know what? If Florida, who has to play Alabama and then play LSU in the next week, I tell you what, if they beat number 2 or 3 Bama and they beat number 1 or 2 LSU, then Florida's got to be the number 1 team in the nation. Sorry, Sooners, but you win those 2 games back to back, you deserve to be number 1. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Florida. I think Florida's going to take Bama. I said that. If they do, then they're going to move up, obviously, in the top 5, maybe even the top 3. And then they play LSU at LSU. And they go in there and they spank LSU. Then Florida's going to be number 1. We're not going to be number 1. No matter how bad we beat Texas. And we're going to beat Texas bad this year. So in some ways, I hate to say it. I want Iowa State to beat Texas. But if Texas wins, they're going to come in undefeated. They're going to be like a top 15 team. We spank them. We look better. If they lose, then they're going to come in dejected, and we're going to hammer them anyway, get back into the oblivion. So either way, it's a win-win situation. I'd rather see Iowa State win because I would like to see Iowa State do something. And it's been a nice run for the Big 12 out of conference. I think we've only had, one loss, 1 or 2 losses at the most. I think Missouri lost to Arizona State, and I don't remember who the other loss was. But that's been a great showing by the Big 12 and out of conference. So with that, I'm gonna wrap this up. Obviously, this cap here is from my days as an Asher Indian in Oklahoma. I'm proud of that. It's the baseball capital of the world for high school. 45 state basketball championships that Asher has won, and they won 1 basketball championship, and that's when I was there. So just want to let y'all guys know. So with that, Bombs here is going to say goodbye. We'll see you next week. OU is going to beat Ball State. Really, out of all this, that's all that really matters to us, is that OU takes care of business. They stay healthy. They work on some things. We get, let's get Trey Franks back. I don't know why he's suspended. I haven't quite figured it out, but I'd like to get him back. Jackson just isn't ready for prime time yet. Maybe he will be, but we got Texas coming up. And then, it's another week off against Kansas. Which, by the way, I played baseball against Turner Gill. And he was, he's out of his league, unfortunately, coaching for Kansas. But that's an off week. And then we get into the real schedule, where we get to play Kansas State and Texas A&M and Oklahoma State. And we're going to rip Texas down. So with that, Bombs is going to say bombs away. Number 8 is on the way. And I'll see all you guys on the board after the Ball State loss to OU. Take it here.